Hello, algebra students. Mr. Laurence here, and we are going to be calculating slopes and midpoints of line segments. That will be the last thing we learn before our test. I'm planning on our test being Friday. I know it's supposed to be Monday, but those two snow days screwed things up a little bit. Now, before I give you the formulas and say, here's how you do it, let's take a look at some line segments I have here. Oops, I forgot to name two of them. For the endpoint, pardon me. Okay, let's call this, I don't know, BQ. All right, so I've got three line segments here. I've got line segment AB, okay, line segment AB, like that. That's the black one. And I've got line segment CD. And of course I have, what did I call it, PQ? I think was the last one. Okay, that's the notation. You read that as line segment AB. All right, now the coordinates of point A are 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, looks like 4, 8. Yeah, 4, 8. And B are at, let's see, 10, 4, I think. Now, the slope, I know you know how to count it. I know you're going to go, well, the rise is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So a rise of -4. And then a run of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a run of 6, and so the slope for segment AB would be -4, 6, which is better says -2/3. But a curious thing here, recall that this is an x-coordinate, and that's a y-coordinate, and that's an x-coordinate, and that's a y-coordinate. Oh, sorry, there should be 2's there. Okay, so curious thing here, look at the x's. 10 and 4, if I take the difference of 10 and 4, I get 6, don't I? And if I do the difference of 4 and 8, I get -4. Yeah, so in other words, to subtract the coordinates, x from x and y from y, and write the y's on top, would be to find the slope. Yeah, let me say that again. If I subtract the coordinates, I take one of the y's, and I subtract the other y coordinate from it, and then I take the same x, like I got to take its partner. Like I could have started with 8. I could have done this. I could have done, 8 minus 4. Okay, but then in the denominator for the x's, I would have to do 4 minus 10. Okay, watch what's going to happen. 8 minus 4 is 4. 4 minus 10 is -6. Well, that's a -2/3, isn't it? Okay, so to find slope when given 2 points, you can subtract the x's, then you subtract the y's. You got to be consistent. If you start with point A, you got to stick with point A for the y part, and then the y's rise to the top. Yeah. So you subtract the x's, subtract the y's, and the y's rise to the top. So let's go through and try that. Let's try it here on point C. Let's see, it's at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So C is at -6, +1, and D is at 2, 2. 2, 2. All right, so I'm going to subtract the x's. So I'm going to go -6 minus 2, and then, oops, sorry, -6 minus 2, that's going to equal -8. And then I'm going to do 1 minus 2, which is -1, which means 1/8. And remember, the y's rise to the top. That's why I put the x in the denominator. Well, let's counter slope out. I rise 1. Well, that's good. And do I run 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I sure do. Look at that. Look at how simple that is. Pretty simple stuff. Okay. Let's try it on PQ. Let's find the slope of PQ. All right, it looks like point PQ is at -9, -1, and point Q is going to be at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I get to 5, -7. So I'm going to subtract the x's. So I'm going to go negative. I'll tell you what, this time I'm going to start with the 5. I'm going to go 5 minus -9, which would be 14, right? Because minus a negative is the same as adding a positive. And then I've got to start with the -7 now. Doesn't matter which point I start with, but I have to be consistent. If I start with 5, the x coordinate from point Q, I have to start with the y coordinate from point Q. That's what I'm trying to say. Minus -1. Well, that'll be -6. If I simplify that, I'm going to get, let's see, I'm going to get a -3/7. Well, let's count it. Let's go down 3. 1, 2, 3, and then write 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Look at that. I hit the line, didn't I? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wow. So to find the slope, we subtract the x's, we subtract the y's, and the y's rise to the top. That is the formula for calculating slope from two given points. So you're going to be given 2 points, not on a graph, and you're going to be able to find the slope. All right, well, that's pretty cool. Now, let's go up here. Let me get rid of some of this. Now let's talk about these midpoints here. Hold on a second. We got some crazy business going on. Let me get rid of a lot of this, everything but the coordinates I want to get rid of. So erase, 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 erase. Midpoint is almost as easy. Well, it is just as easy. It's almost as cool, I guess I'm trying to say. I think I just erased the C for point C. Oh dear. Let's put that C back in there, and his coordinates, I think, were -9, 8, 7, 6, -6, +1. All right, let me get a little more erasing going on here, because now we're going to do the midpoint. And the midpoint, when I first discovered this about the midpoint, I think I was a teacher trying to figure out how to teach some students. The midpoint is crazy. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, let's see here. I erased that point B. And, oh, that's not black. Point B is at 10, 4. All right. Now, if you think about a number line, and I ask you what number is in the middle of, say, 3 and 8, okay? Some of you will like write all the numbers in between. Yeah, and that's a great way to do it when you're in elementary school. But you know what? We're in honors algebra. We need to do it more efficiently. We need to do it more quickly. We can just average the 8 and 3. 3 plus 8 divided by 2, and that's going to get me 5.5. 5.5 is in the middle of 3 and 8. You don't believe me? 3, and let's go. 4, 5, 6, 7, and then of course 8, right? So you'd go thump, 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 thump. It would have to be in the middle there, 5.5. See that? Now, you know, I say, well, between 3 and 8, what's the big deal, Mr. Laurence? Well, maybe it's not a big deal between 3 and 8, but what if I ask you for the middle of 2 and 1,655? You really want to write all those numbers out? It's just not very efficient. So we've got to have a more efficient way to go about this. Well, I like to average to find the middle, okay, if there's only 2 numbers. And so to find the midpoint, all I'm going to do is I'm going to average the x's. So I'm going to take 4 plus 10 and divide by 2. And then I'm going to average the y's. That'll be 8 plus 4 divided by 2. Now, by the way, in this case, it won't matter. Like if you mix and match, you might want to start with the 4 and then start with the 8. But it wouldn't have mattered if you had started with the 4, because when you're adding, addition is commutative, right? Okay, so 14 divided by 2 is 7, and then 12 divided by 2 is 6. I'm telling you, the midpoint of segment AB is located at the point 7, 6. Let's go see if we're right here. Let's get this nice orange color. And let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Look at that. Look at that. Isn't it smack in the middle? Like if I count 1, 2, 3 over and 2 down, and if I go 3 over, 2 down, look at that. It's going to be the same, isn't it? Because look, I'm making two congruent right triangles, aren't I? Yeah. I mean, I could use the Pythagorean theorem to prove that these two segments are the same if you really wanted me to. This is 3 and this is 2, and this is 3 and this is 2, and I could take 2 squared plus 3 squared, and that'll have to equal c squared, right? Okay, that'll be 4 plus 9, c squared. That'll be 13 equals c squared. C will be equal to the square root of 13, the rad of 13. Yeah. And now, since that has sides of 3 and 2 as a right triangle, it's going to work out exactly the same, isn't it? So they're both rad 13 in length. Yeah. So therefore, they're equal segments. And this point here, I'll call it point, I don't know, F, is the midpoint of A and B because it broke the segment up into two equal pieces. All right. So let's try it on C and D. Okay, so I average the x's. So I take negative 6 plus 2, divide by 2, and then I average the y's. Take 1 plus 2 and divide by 2. And so I think the midpoint of this segment is going to be at negative 2. How do I get that? Negative 4 divided by 2. Oh, I can't right now. I'll have to call back because I can't pause it. Oh, you want to take it? Is it Brandon?
I don't know who it is. Is this Brandon?
Okay, and I'll do 3 plus 2.
Braden,
sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, he's in the middle of doing a video. Okay. Can he call you back in a few minutes?
1.5. Okay.
Or do you want to just...
So negative 2, 1.5, right there. There you go. We're in the middle. Okay, great. So let's try it on this PQ segment. So to find the midpoint, I'm going to average the x's. So negative 9 plus 5 divided by 2. And then I'm going to go negative 1 plus negative 7 divided by 2. And so the midpoint better be at negative 2. Looks like I drew the midpoint in already. Silly me. Negative 4. All right, so negative 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Yeah, there it is. There's the middle of the point. Okay, so what we've done here, we've done two things. We did the slope. We find the slope by subtracting the x's, subtracting the y's, and the y's rise to the top. And we got to pay attention to the order. Okay. Then we find the midpoint of that segment that goes between those 2 points. And we do that by averaging the x's, averaging the y's. The order won't matter in this case. And we get the midpoint. So I'm going to suggest that you pause the video here. Try and do this for both A and B. Find the slope of both A and B. And then find the midpoint. Okay, so you're finding the slope of the segment that runs from the point 6,3 to 9,8 without graphing. You shouldn't be graphing. You shouldn't need to for this. Graphing could be a good backup to check your work, but you shouldn't need to do it. All right, go ahead and pause the video. When you're ready, come see my solutions. Okay, here we go. I'm going to do point A. First of all, find the slope. And so some kids like to do this where they go x1, y1, x2, y2. You don't have to. But I'm going to subtract the y, so I'm going to go 8 minus 3, subtract my x's, 9 minus 6. The y's rose to the top, so I'll have 5 thirds. There's my slope. Now to get my midpoint, that I think it's easier. I'm going to average the x's, so I'm going to go 6 plus 9, divide by 2, and then I'm going to go 3 plus 8, and divide by 2, and I'm going to get 15 divided by 2 is 7.5. And then I'm going to go 11 divided by 2 is 5.5. And there is the midpoint of the segment that runs between those 2 points. Okay, let's do it again for B here. Again, if you haven't tried it, pause the video and try it on your own. So I'm going to look for my slope. And let's see, I'm going to subtract the x's. So I'm going to get negative 3 minus negative 6. Well, I think that's going to end up being a positive 3. And then I'm going to get a 9 minus a negative 1, which is going to be a 10. My slope is going to be 10/3. Now the midpoint, I'm going to average, so I'm going to get negative 3 plus negative 6 divided by 2, which, by the way, will be negative 4.5, won't it? And then I'm going to average the y's, and I'm going to get 9 plus negative 1 divided by 2, and that's going to be 4. Okay, there you go. So here's a little video quiz for you. You're just going to do what you just did. You're going to find me the midpoint and find me the slope for the segment that runs between these 2 points, and then for the second problem, the segment that runs between those 2 points. All right, we'll get a little practice with this and have our test on Friday, and hopefully you're working hard and doing your best so you can get those grades where you want them to be. Mr. Laurence signing off. Have a good night, everybody.